History remembers the conquerors, the empire builders, the men who bathed the earth in blood. But what about the man who broke an entire region's economy simply by being too generous? What about the king so wealthy that his casual spending destabilized international markets for over a decade? This is the story of Mansa Musa, the African emperor who controlled more gold than any human before or since, who crashed the Mediterranean economy with acts of charity, and whose legendary wealth vanished so completely that modern historians still debate whether it ever truly existed. In 1324, this man carried so much gold on a single pilgrimage that he accidentally triggered economic chaos across 3 continents. When he died, his fortune, estimated at over $400 billion in today's currency, disappeared without a trace. Here's the impossible part. Musa didn't conquer his wealth. He inherited an economic system so sophisticated, so brilliantly designed, that it made medieval Mali the financial superpower of the known world. And then, within a single generation of his death, it all vanished as if it had never existed. What happens when the richest human in recorded history decides to prove his devotion to God? How does a single man's journey reshape the medieval world's understanding of Africa, wealth, and power? And why has his legendary treasure eluded treasure hunters, archaeologists, and historians for 7 centuries? This isn't just about missing gold. This is about a civilization so advanced that medieval Europe couldn't even comprehend its existence, about trade networks that spanned the Sahara before Europeans dreamed of crossing the Atlantic, and about a secret so carefully guarded that it died with an empire picture, the world in 1312. While Europe struggles through famine and feudal warfare, while the Mongol Empire fragments across Asia, a 25-year-old man ascends to the throne of Mali in West Africa. His name is Musa Keita, and he inherits something unprecedented in human history: the keys to the world's gold supply. Medieval Mali controls the Bambouk and Bouré goldfields, regions that produce nearly half of the old world's gold supply. But here's what makes Mali exceptional. This isn't just raw resource extraction. The Malian Empire operates sophisticated gold trading networks, enforces strict mining regulations, and maintains such tight control over gold distribution that they can manipulate prices across 3 continents. While European kings struggle to mint coins, Musa's treasury processes tons of gold dust weekly. The empire stretches across an area larger than Western Europe, encompassing diverse cultures, languages, and religious traditions. At its heart sits Niani, the imperial capital, and rising in the desert, the legendary city of Timbuktu, already becoming a center of Islamic scholarship that will eventually house hundreds of thousands of manuscripts. In 1324, Mansa Musa makes a decision that will echo through history. He will fulfill his Islamic duty and journey to Mecca for Hajj. But this won't be an ordinary pilgrimage. He will take his entire fortune with him. He will show the Arab world, the Mediterranean powers, and all of humanity exactly who controls the world's wealth. What Musa doesn't realize is that this journey will accidentally reveal Mali's greatest secret and begin a countdown to the empire's eventual collapse. The moment his golden caravan departs Niani, the clock starts ticking on one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. Mansa Musa isn't born to rule. He inherits the throne through a twist of fate that still puzzles historians. His predecessor, Mansa Abu Bakr II, becomes obsessed with an impossible question: what lies beyond the Atlantic Ocean? In 1311, Abu Bakr II launches a massive naval expedition, 200 ships carrying Mali's elite sailors, into uncharted waters, searching for the ocean's far shore. Abu Bakr II Adhonapoidu never returns. The Atlantic swallows him, his fleet, and any chance he had of ruling Mali. The throne passes to his deputy, Musa Keita, a scholarly man more interested in Islamic jurisprudence than military conquest. At 25, Musa finds himself emperor of an economic superpower he barely understands. But Musa possesses something more valuable than military genius. He's brilliant at administration. While previous Malian rulers focused on territorial expansion, Musa recognizes that Mali's true power lies in its control of trans-Saharan trade routes. He doesn't need to conquer more land. He needs to perfect the system he inherited. The system is extraordinary. Mali doesn't just dig gold from the earth and trade it away. The empire operates a sophisticated three-tiered economic structure. At the base, royal-controlled mining operations extract raw gold under strict supervision. Independent miners must sell their findings to state officials at fixed prices. No exceptions. The middle tier processes this gold dust in imperial facilities, where it's weighed, verified, and prepared for trade. The top tier manages international distribution through licensed merchant networks that extend to Cairo, Tripoli, and beyond. Musa's first major challenge comes not from external enemies, but from within his own court. Traditional Malian rulers, griots, religious leaders, provincial governors, view him as an intellectual, a scholar king without the warrior's instinct. They whisper doubts about his ability to maintain Mali's dominance. Musa responds not with violence, but with economic warfare. When a regional governor attempts to sell gold independently to Arab merchants, bypassing imperial controls, Musa doesn't execute him. Instead, he restructures the entire provincial tribute system, making it impossible for any regional authority to accumulate enough wealth to challenge imperial power. He transforms Mali's gold economy from a loosely coordinated network into a centralized machine. But centralization requires infrastructure. Musa invests massively in cities, not just fortifications but centers of learning, trade, and administration. He understands something revolutionary. Wealth isn't just about resources. It's about the systems that manage those resources. He recruits Islamic scholars from across North Africa, paying them extraordinary salaries to establish schools, libraries, and judicial systems based on Islamic law. The transformation takes years. By 1320, Mali operates more like a modern state than a medieval empire. It has standardized weights and measures for gold trading, written contracts enforced by Islamic courts, educational institutions producing literate administrators, and a taxation system that generates predictable revenue. Yet even as Musa perfects his empire's economic engine, he feels incomplete. He's a devout Muslim ruling an empire where Islam blends with traditional African spiritual practices. Many of his subjects practice syncretic religions, incorporating Islamic prayers alongside ancestral worship. Musa wants more than economic dominance. He wants spiritual legitimacy. He wants the Islamic world to recognize Mali not as a distant, half-barbaric source of gold, but as a proper Muslim civilization. This desire plants a dangerous seed. What if he could demonstrate Mali's wealth and Islamic devotion simultaneously? What if he could make a pilgrimage to Mecca so magnificent that the entire Islamic world would have to acknowledge Mali's power? The idea grows into an obsession. By 1323, Musa begins planning something unprecedented. He will journey to Mecca, taking not a small retinue, but a mobile city. He will carry enough gold to make donations to every holy site, every city, every ruler he encounters. He will prove that the richest Muslim in the world rules in Africa, not Arabia or Persia. His advisors warn him. They calculate the costs, not just in gold, but in administrative disruption. Who will manage the empire during his absence? What if rivals see his journey as weakness? What if exposing Mali's wealth invites invasion? Musa dismisses their concerns. He has complete faith in his administrative systems. He believes Mali's economic machine runs so smoothly that it doesn't require his constant presence. More critically, he believes that demonstrating Mali's wealth will strengthen, not weaken, its international position. This is Musa's first great miscalculation. He doesn't understand that mystery and scarcity drive value. By revealing the full extent of Mali's gold reserves, he will inadvertently destroy the very mystique that makes Malian gold so valuable. But in 1324, as Musa assembles his caravan, these future consequences remain hidden. All he sees is opportunity, the chance to write his name in history as the most generous pilgrim ever to walk the desert roads to Mecca. The caravan that departs Niani in 1324 defies comprehension. 60,000 people march in organized units: soldiers, servants, scholars, merchants, and courtiers. 500 enslaved people walk ahead of Musa's personal contingent, each carrying a golden staff weighing 6 pounds. 80 camels strain under the weight of gold dust, each beast carrying 300 pounds of precious metal. The caravan stretches for miles across the savannah, a mobile civilization moving at the pace of prayer. But numbers don't capture the spectacle. Musa travels like a traveling emperor, maintaining full imperial protocols on the road. He holds court in elaborate tents, receives petitioners, conducts religious services, and manages ongoing imperial business through relay messengers who gallop between the caravan and Niani. This isn't a pilgrimage, it's a rolling demonstration of state power. The journey follows ancient trans-Saharan trade routes, paths worn smooth by centuries of merchant traffic. First stop, Walata, a desert trading city where Saharan nomads meet West African merchants. Here, Musa makes his first massive gold distribution. He pays generous prices for supplies, gives golden gifts to local leaders, and donates to the city's mosques. The locals have seen wealthy travelers before, but nothing like this. Word spreads ahead of the caravan like wildfire. The king of Mali walks the desert roads, and he scatters gold like sand. Crossing the Sahara takes months. The caravan follows oasis to oasis routes, navigating by stars and employing Tuareg guides who know every water source, every dangerous passage. Musa maintains a steady pace, neither rushing nor dawdling. He wants to arrive in Cairo during the right season, when Egyptian markets are active and the Mamluk Sultan is in residence. Cairo, that's where everything changes. The Malian caravan reaches Cairo in July 1324, during the scorching Egyptian summer. The city's population swells by 60,000 overnight. Musa sends word to Sultan al-Nasir Muhammad, requesting an audience. The Sultan, intrigued by reports of the Golden Caravan, agrees. Here's where things get complicated. According to Mamluk protocol, visiting rulers must kiss the ground before the Sultan, a gesture of submission to Egyptian authority. Musa refuses. He's a sovereign emperor, not a vassal. He won't prostrate himself before another earthly ruler. For days, negotiations stall. Egyptian officials insist on protocol. Musa remains unmoved. Finally, they reach a compromise. Musa will prostrate himself, but he'll claim he's bowing to Allah, not to the Sultan. It's a diplomatic fiction that preserves everyone's honor. The meeting proceeds, and Egyptian chroniclers later describe their amazement at Musa's dignity, learning, and obvious wealth. But Musa's real impact on Cairo isn't diplomatic, it's economic. For 3 months, the Malian emperor stays in Cairo, and during that time, he systematically breaks the city's gold market. He gives extravagant gifts to the Sultan, to religious leaders, to merchants he meets in the souks. He purchases supplies at inflated prices without negotiating. He donates massively to Cairo's mosques, schools, and charitable institutions. He pays his soldiers' salaries in gold, and they spend freely in Cairo's markets. Egyptian merchants initially rejoice. They sell goods to Malians at enormous markups, pocketing tremendous profits. But as weeks pass, a strange phenomenon develops. So much gold floods Cairo's markets that the precious metal's value begins dropping. Merchants who accepted gold payments watch in horror as their apparent wealth loses purchasing power. The gold-to-silver exchange rate, stable for decades, begins shifting dramatically. The economic chaos accelerates. Merchants holding large gold reserves panic and try to convert them to other assets, property, goods, silver. But everyone's doing the same thing simultaneously, creating a massive oversupply of gold and driving its value even lower. Within weeks, Cairo experiences something unprecedented: gold-driven inflation. Prices for basic goods skyrocket because the gold used to purchase them has become too common to retain its value. Contemporary Egyptian historian Al-Makrizi later writes that Musa's visit depressed Cairo's gold market for over 12 years. The emperor flooded Cairo with his generosities, causing economic disruption that outlasted his visit by more than a decade. Ironically, Musa's generosity creates resentment alongside admiration. Merchants who initially celebrated his arrival later curse his memory as their gold holdings devalue. Musa himself remains oblivious to the chaos he's causing. He sees only grateful recipients and assumes his generosity is cementing Mali's reputation. He continues his lavish spending, convinced he's fulfilling both his religious duty and his imperial mission to showcase Mali's power. Eventually, someone explains the situation to him. Gold's value depends partly on scarcity. By distributing so much so quickly, he's undermined the very thing he intended to demonstrate: the exceptional value of Malian gold. Musa, faced with the unintended consequences of his generosity, does something remarkable. He tries to fix it. He borrows gold from Egyptian moneylenders at extortionate interest rates, not because he needs the gold, but because he wants to remove his distributed gold from circulation. He's trying to reverse his own economic impact by creating artificial demand. It doesn't work. The damage is done. But the attempt reveals something important about Musa's character. He's adaptable, willing to admit mistakes, and sophisticated enough to understand complex economic mechanisms. These aren't typical traits for medieval rulers, who usually rely on military force and rigid tradition. After Cairo, the caravan continues to Mecca. The pilgrimage itself, the sacred rituals, the circling of the Kaaba, the standing at Mount Arafat, passes almost unremarked in historical records. What matters to chroniclers isn't Musa's religious devotion, but his ongoing displays of wealth. In Mecca, in Medina, in every holy city, he distributes gold with the same overwhelming generosity that disrupted Cairo's economy. The return journey takes a different route, passing through Egyptian territories again. By now, Musa's reputation has spread throughout the Mediterranean world. Arab historians begin writing about him, describing Mali in terms usually reserved for legendary kingdoms. European cartographers, hearing second-hand reports, start adding Mali to their maps, depicting Musa as a golden king sitting on a throne of bullion. But something happens on the journey home that doesn't make it into most historical accounts. Musa receives troubling news from Mali. In his absence, the empire's administrative systems have functioned perfectly, perhaps too perfectly. Provincial governors have grown comfortable making decisions without imperial oversight. Merchant networks have developed their own protocols. The machine Musa built runs smoothly without him, which raises an uncomfortable question. Does Mali actually need its emperor? Musa returns to Niani in 1325, after 18 months on the road. He brings gifts, stories, and dozens of Islamic scholars he's recruited to join Mali's intellectual centers. But he also brings an unwelcome truth. He's revealed too much. The mystery surrounding Mali's wealth has vanished. Now everyone knows where the gold comes from, approximately how much Mali controls, and how to reach the empire's borders. The questions begin almost immediately. If Mali has this much gold, why don't other powers try to take it? What prevents European or Arab forces from conquering the goldfields? The answer is partly geography. The Sahara acts as a natural barrier, but partly Mali's deliberate policy of information control, which Musa has just demolished. Yet Musa's fame also brings benefits. His pilgrimage makes Mali a destination for Islamic scholars, merchants, and adventurers. Timbuktu transforms from a regional trading post into an international city. The University of Sankora attracts students from across the Islamic world. Mali's libraries accumulate manuscripts on mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and theology. The empire becomes not just an economic power, but a cultural one. Musa spends his remaining years trying to balance these competing forces, maintaining Mali's economic dominance while encouraging its cultural flowering. He commissions elaborate mosques, including the famous Jinguereber Mosque in Timbuktu, designed by the Andalusian architect al-Sahili, whom Musa recruited during his pilgrimage. He expands educational institutions, standardizes legal systems, and promotes long-distance trade. But he never quite grasps the danger he's created. By making Mali visible, he's made it vulnerable. By revealing the empire's wealth, he's started a timer counting down to its eventual exploitation. Mansa Musa dies around 1337, after ruling for 25 years. His death isn't dramatic. No assassination, no battlefield heroics. He simply grows old and passes peacefully, surrounded by family and advisors. His son, Mansa Musa, inherits the throne and, theoretically, inherits the vast fortune his father accumulated. Here's where history takes a strange turn. Within one generation, barely 30 years, Mali's legendary wealth effectively disappears. Not gradually, not through slow decline, but almost overnight in historical terms. Future Malian rulers remain powerful, but none display the overwhelming riches that characterized Musa's reign. When Portuguese explorers finally reached the region in the 15th century, they find nothing resembling the golden empire described by 14th-century Arab chroniclers. What happened to Mansa Musa's fortune? The traditional explanation blames weak successors and political fragmentation. Mansa Musa rules poorly, they say, losing control over provincial territories. The empire's gold production declines. Rival powers, particularly the rising Songhai Empire to the east, chip away at Mali's territories. By 1400, Mali is a shadow of its former self, and the wealth has supposedly dispersed across West Africa. But this explanation doesn't add up. Gold doesn't evaporate. If Mali's treasury contained hundreds of tons of gold in 1337, that wealth should be traceable in successor kingdoms, in archaeological sites, in physical evidence. Yet, surprisingly, little gold from Mali's imperial period has been recovered. The elaborate palaces, the golden courts, the legendary treasures, they've left almost no material trace. Some historians propose that Mali never possessed as much gold as Arab chroniclers claimed. Perhaps Musa's pilgrimage was an elaborate bluff, a one-time liquidation of generational wealth designed to create the illusion of unlimited riches. Maybe the Arab historians, dazzled by Musa's Cairo spending, exaggerated Mali's actual reserves. This theory has problems too. Musa didn't just distribute gold, he controlled the supply. For decades after his pilgrimage, Mali continued exporting significant quantities of gold to Mediterranean markets. The goldfields kept producing. The trade networks kept functioning. This wasn't smoke and mirrors. This was genuine economic power. A darker possibility emerges when you examine the timing. Musa's pilgrimage exposed not just Mali's wealth, but its sources. The specific locations of goldfields, the routes caravans followed, the methods used to process and distribute the precious metal. Within decades of Musa's death, we see increased activity by Arab and Berber merchants in regions previously dominated by Malian traders. Gold begins flowing through new networks that bypass Mali's traditional controls. Did Musa's display of wealth essentially give away Mali's trade secrets? Did revealing the empire's riches provide a roadmap for rivals to exploit? The evidence suggests yes. By making Mali's gold system visible and comprehensible, Musa inadvertently enabled its circumvention. But there's another factor, one that modern historians have only recently begun exploring: environmental change. 14th century West Africa experiences significant climate shifts. Rainfall patterns change, affecting agricultural production and population distribution. Some goldfields may have been exhausted. Others might have become harder to access as desert boundaries shifted. The ecological basis for Mali's wealth may have been eroding even as Musa made his golden pilgrimage. Still, this doesn't explain the complete disappearance of accumulated wealth. Even if new gold production declined, Musa's personal fortune should have remained in Mali's treasury. Unless it didn't. Unless Musa did something with his wealth that wasn't recorded in official histories. One tantalizing possibility involves Musa's architectural projects. The mosques he commissioned weren't just buildings. They were massive constructions requiring enormous resources. The Jingareber Mosque in Timbuktu reportedly incorporated significant quantities of gold in its construction and decoration. But here's the thing. When later rulers needed money, they could have simply melted down these golden decorations. That they apparently didn't suggests either the gold was never there, or it was somehow protected, hidden, or transformed into something unrecoverable. Oral traditions in modern Mali speak of sacred gold, precious metal dedicated to religious purposes that became untouchable, buried in secret locations known only to trusted guardians. Could Musa have dedicated portions of his fortune to religious endowments, removing them from the active economy? Could vast quantities of gold be literally buried beneath West African soil, waiting to be rediscovered? Archaeological investigation has been limited. Modern Mali faces political instability, making systematic excavation difficult. The region around Niani, Mali's ancient capital, remains largely unexplored by modern archaeological standards. Timbuktu's libraries contain thousands of manuscripts that haven't been fully translated or studied. The answers might be there, waiting, or perhaps the fortune never existed in the concentrated form we imagine. Maybe Musa's wealth wasn't a Scrooge McDuck vault of gold coins, but rather controlled access to ongoing gold production. A positional advantage that evaporated once competitors learned how to access the same gold fields. In this interpretation, Musa was wealthy because he controlled a system, not because he possessed a treasure. When the system collapsed, the wealth dispersed because it had always been diffuse, distributed across networks rather than hoarded in treasuries. Here's what we know for certain. Mansa Musa existed. He ruled Mali during its peak power. He made an extraordinary pilgrimage to Mecca around 1324, distributing enough gold to destabilize Mediterranean economies. He commissioned significant architectural and educational projects. He died around 1337, and within decades, Mali's golden age ended. Everything else, the exact size of his fortune, what happened to it, whether it was ever as large as chroniclers claimed, remains speculation built on incomplete evidence. Modern estimates place Musa's wealth at $400 billion or more in today's currency, making him potentially the richest person in human history. But these calculations require assumptions about gold reserves, production rates, and economic systems that we can't verify. The figure is impressive but possibly meaningless. What's undeniable is Musa's historical impact. Before his pilgrimage, Europeans barely acknowledged West Africa's existence. Afterward, Mali appears on European maps, usually featuring Musa sitting on a golden throne. The legend of his wealth helped reshape European perceptions of Africa from an empty void to a land of powerful kingdoms and valuable resources. That reshaping had consequences. European interest in African gold eventually contributed to the Atlantic slave trade and colonial exploitation. Musa's pilgrimage, intended to demonstrate Islamic civilization's strength in Africa, inadvertently helped mark West Africa as a target for future exploitation. But Mali's intellectual legacy endures more successfully than its material wealth. The scholarly traditions Musa promoted continued even after the empire's political decline. Timbuktu's libraries preserved knowledge through centuries of upheaval. The manuscripts surviving today, covering mathematics, astronomy, medicine, law, and literature, prove that Mali wasn't just rich in gold, but rich in learning. The mystery of the missing fortune continues to fascinate. Every few years, someone claims to have found evidence of Musa's lost gold. In hidden chambers, in underwater sites, in coded manuscripts. So far, none of these claims have produced verifiable results. The treasure, if it exists, remains hidden. Maybe that's fitting. Musa wanted to demonstrate Mali's wealth, but his lasting legacy isn't material. It's the memory of an African empire that rivaled any medieval power, that controlled crucial economic networks, that attracted scholars from 3 continents, and that proved African civilizations were as sophisticated, complex, and powerful as any in the medieval world. The missing fortune is a puzzle historians may never solve. But perhaps the real treasure isn't gold at all. Perhaps it's the story itself. The reminder that history's narrative has been incomplete. That African civilizations achieved greatness that European-centric histories ignored. And that the medieval world was far more interconnected, complex, and dynamic than most people realize. Mansa Musa's wealth may be gone, but the empire he built and the traditions he fostered left traces that persist today. In the manuscripts of Timbuktu, in the architectural marvels he commissioned, in the memory of West African communities who still tell stories of the Golden King, Musa's legacy survives. 7 centuries after his death, we're still talking about him, still wondering about his fortune, still reassessing his impact. For a man who wanted to be remembered, who spent his wealth generously to cement his reputation, that's perhaps the ultimate success. The gold may have vanished, but the legend endures. What do you think happened to Mansa Musa's fortune? Was it ever as vast as the legends claim, or did medieval chroniclers exaggerate his wealth? Could there really be undiscovered treasures waiting beneath West African soil? Or has the gold long since dispersed through normal historical processes? Share your theories in the comments below. And if this hidden chapter of medieval history fascinates you, if you want to explore more underrepresented stories from cultures around the world, subscribe to this channel. History isn't just what happened. It's how we choose to remember it, which stories we tell, and which perspectives we prioritize. Let's tell the stories that deserve to be heard. The mystery of Mansa Musa's fortune remains unsolved. But now you know the real story, not just of gold and power, but of a sophisticated empire, a generous emperor, and a legacy that transcends material wealth. The richest man in history left us something more valuable than gold. He left us questions that challenge how we understand the medieval world, Africa's place in global history, and the nature of wealth itself.